to develop an ability to draw the upper inner tricep in while taking the bottom of the shoulder blade forward. Notice that lifts the elbow. This is necessary for a headstand. So we want to develop strength in serratus anterior by drawing upper inner tricep in and lifting the elbow. Now I can take my free hand, lift that elbow. It wouldn't necessarily go up as high if my fingers weren't there. I arch my chest up, keeping the elbow in close to the head, shoulders down, creating as much space between my neck and shoulder as possible. And then I inhale, expand the upper chest while I'm supporting with my fingers. Expand the upper chest, expand the sides of the rib cage. And then as I exhale, I try to keep that elbow up. Inhaling turns on serratus anterior, and then I release the support. And try to hold the position by engaging serratus anterior. When my arm comes down and I take a deep breath into the side ribs, I'll notice that the side I worked is much freer. I can breathe more deeply into that side of the rib cage. So that's a good way to develop some respiratory strength and tremendous strength in the arms for any kind of arm balance. Another way to develop strength in serratus anterior and stabilize the shoulders to keep the neck free. And we want to keep the neck free. We want the neck to stay relaxed because shoulder strength, arm strength is maximum when the neck is relaxed, so there's no pressure on the nerve supply into the arm. That's how we get maximum strength in the arm. So if I take a block in the beginning, if you're not so strong, or if your shoulders are very wide, you may need 2 blocks side by side and work this exercise, or perhaps you do it without any blocks. But eventually, you take a block between the upper arms. It's a little easier if you do it between the elbows. And I place my hands down. Now notice, my shoulders stay vertically above the elbow. So the idea, and I don't have to take elbows to the floor. If it's difficult, I can only go part of the way down. Later, as you get stronger, if you take your feet well behind the block, if your feet are close to the block, then this is not a difficult exercise. But to cultivate strength in serratus and in the triceps and back of the shoulder, we take the hands completely onto the block. Notice that the heel of my palm is completely supported by the block. And the intention is to take elbows toward the floor and lift up. So that will begin to develop the strength you need to stabilize in headstand or forearm balance, or for that matter, learning to do something like Chaturanga Dandasana without using your feet. And there are other variations you can do on that. So those are good exercises to begin to develop the strength in your arms for your headstand, for your forearm balance, and also used in your handstand. For handstand in particular, we can take a somewhat different approach. If I have my hands out, and I'll make it easy, this is an easier variation. You can also do it with the toes down, lifting up, but we'll do an easier variation. If I have my knees down, elbows lifted off of the floor, as the shoulders sink toward the floor and the collarbones lift away from the floor, it creates space between my neck and shoulder. So this is fundamental position for shoulders in any kind of headstand and forearm balance and handstand or down dog. Down dog is a variation of handstand. When I lift my hips up, I lift up by taking the upper thighs away from the floor, shoulders toward the floor, collarbones away from the floor. So you do this on an exhale, drawing the lower abdomen in toward the spine. You can use Mula Bandha to engage muscles in the lower spine or in the lower abdomen and base of the pelvis. And that avoids compression in your back. If you feel compression in your back, you can tuck under slightly. Nothing wrong with doing that, just to take pressure off of the bony structures of the spine. So this is another variation that you can use to develop your handstand. If we look at this in down dog, you're using down dog to begin to cultivate your handstand. So if I'm in a down dog, the same actions occur. Shoulders sinking toward the floor, collarbones lifting away from the floor, and the hips pressing back to help lengthen the spine. Now I'm standing on one leg just because it gives me a little bit more work in the leg. Notice my toes are lifting away from the floor. That's a cultivation of the lower leg that gives more mobility in the lower leg and protects against certain kinds of knee problems particularly. So this is a good way to work in down dog. We can show what happens if you don't do that. If you squeeze your shoulder blades in, you find the bones jam and it's difficult for the body to go down. But notice, with my shoulder blades squeezing in, coming down, I can only go so far. But when the shoulders move apart, you find body will sink toward the floor. So again, if I squeeze shoulder blades in, it will jam things in little ways, in the neck, in the shoulder. But notice, as the shoulders move apart, upper thighs move back, collarbones lifted, I can literally sink into the floor. So the best position for the shoulder is always bottom tip of the shoulder blade down, bottom tip of the shoulder blade forward, chest lifting up. In down dog, what does that look like? Shoulder blade slide down simply because of your weight. So bottom tip of the shoulder blade shifts toward the front of the rib cage, and I arch my chest into the space between the arms. So I say collarbones lift away from the floor. So that's proper action for the shoulders.